And can I get you to introduce yourself to the jury for me?
My name is Garland Lott.
And can you spell your name for the court reporter?
It's Garlanlott.
Mr. Lott, in what town do you currently live?
Fitzgerald.
Did you grow up in Fitzgerald?
No.
Where'd you grow up?
In Osceola.
How old are you?
34.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Bo Dukes?
I do.
How do you know Bo?
He was a year older than I was, so we hung out a lot on the weekends.
Now, you say he was a year younger than you?
Older.
Older. Did y'all go to the same high school?
Yes.
And what high school was that?
Irwin County High School.
What year did you graduate from high school?
2003.
So do you know what year Bo graduated from high school?
Would have been 2002.
Now, what about someone by the name of Ryan Duke? Do you know him?
Yes.
And how do you know Ryan?
The same way. I went to the same high school together. He was older than I was.
Ryan was also older than you?
Yes.
And do you know what year Ryan graduated high school?
Would have been 2002.
Now tell me, do you know what the nature of the relationship was between Bo and Ryan?
They were relatively good friends.
When you say relatively good friends, can you tell me, were they closer to each other than you were to the two of them?
Yes.
Would you say they were best friends?
Probably, yes.
Was it uncommon to see one without the other?
No.
It was not uncommon to see one without the other?
Yes.
Okay. When you were, I guess for lack of a better term, partying or hanging out, was it usually the two of them together?
Yes, they would be at the same social gathering.
Now, you've identified that you went to school with them and that y'all, I think you used the phrase hung out. Were y'all part of, I guess, the same social circle in Irwin County?
Yes.
And most of us being from a small town understand that circle's not real big, is that correct? Okay. Have you ever been to, when y'all were in high school, did you ever go to Ryan's home out there in Irwin County?
Yes.
And where did Ryan grow up?
Out at Pleasure Lake.
Okay. What about Bo? When y'all were growing up, did you ever go to Bo's home?
Yes.
And where did Bo live at the time?
He lived over close to the old high school in Irwin County, in Osceola.
Did they ever come to your home for parties?
Yes.
Now, during the time period that y'all were in high school, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Can you tell me some of the people that were in your peer group that all hung out together?
There's a lot. Probably, let's see, Cliff Benson, Reese Jones, Clayton Sermons, Keith Harper, Ben Matt Mahan, Bo Dukes, Ryan Dukes. You want females too?
Please.
Jessica Day, Laura Bradford. Golly, I don't know. There's a bunch.
Okay.
I would need a yearbook.
That's fine. That gives me an idea. Where was, in high school, the main place that y'all would have parties or hang out on the weekends?
Probably my house.
Now I want to kind of move forward to after school. Tell me again, what year did you graduate high school?
2003.
And when you graduated from high school, did you initially go to any school or get any sort of degree?
I went to ABAC.
Okay. What kind of degree were you going towards at ABAC?
I really wasn't going for one at the time.
Okay. Did you ever, in fact, get a degree from ABAC?
No.
Did you wind up getting any sort of degree or certificate?
From ABAC?
No, from any school?
Yes.
Where did you get your degree or certificate?
I got a bachelor's degree in occupational health and safety from Columbia Southern University.
Okay. And what do you do now?
I'm an assistant production manager for Modern Dispersion South in Fitzgerald.
Does that involve the degree that you received?
No, that degree helped me get promoted into this position. I was the safety director there for 3 to 4 years.
Now, back in 2005, did you know someone by the name of Tara Grinstead?
Yes.
And how did you know Tara Grinstead?
She taught me twice in high school.
Do you know personally if either Bo Dukes or Ryan Duke ever had Tara as a teacher?
I do not.
Have you ever been to any party where Bo Dukes was present as well as Tara Grinstead?
No.
Have you ever been to any party where Ryan Duke was present as well as Tara Grinstead?
No.
Now, understanding Ms. Grinstead was a fairly young teacher at the time, Was it anything unusual that some of her male students might have a crush on her?
I'm pretty sure several of them thought she was very pretty and may have had a crush on her.
Do you recall any conversations or just in general whether or not Bo or Ryan ever discussed Miss Grinstead?
No.
Nona, do you recall when Miss Grinstead went missing?
Yes. It was 2 years after I graduated high school. So.
And how did you first learn that she was missing?
If I can best remember, I'd come back, I was working, I'd come back home, and that's when I'd heard that nobody had seen her, that she was missing.
Do you know how long it was after she went missing that you learned about it?
I'm sure it was probably the same day or day after everybody else in Ocilla heard about it.
That kind of leads me to my next question. At that point, would everyone in Ocilla have known that Tara Grinstead was missing?
Probably.
Have you ever had an occasion to hear either Ryan or Bo Dukes discuss the disappearance of Tara Grinstead?
Yes, there was a comment made at a party that I attended to.
Okay. Now, this party that you went to, how long after she went missing did this party occur?
2 to 3 weeks.
And where was this party held?
At the pecan orchard, at which they said in Fitzgerald. So,
do you know who owns that pecan orchard?
To my best knowledge, Randy Hudson owned it.
Had you ever been to that pecan orchard before?
No.
No?
No. Not that I can recall.
That's fine. So as far as the party at this pecan orchard, were y'all all just sort of standing in the field, on trucks? What was going on?
There was parked vehicles around, there was a fire, and we were standing around.
Okay. Was there drinking at the party?
I'm pretty sure there was.
Okay. And to be clear, do you believe you were probably drinking at that party?
More than likely.
Do you know whether or not you had partaken in any other substances that might have impaired your knowledge at that party?
More than likely.
Okay. Again, understanding we're talking about some time ago, any idea of anything else you might have taken at the time that might have affected your thought process at the time?
No.
Now, you said that you heard a comment made. I kind of want to set the scene and make sure I'm clear. Do you recall sitting here today where Bo and Ryan were at the time this comment got made?
I'm not exactly sure, but to best of my knowledge, I believe they were sitting in a vehicle.
Okay. Whose vehicle would that have been?
I'm not sure.
Where were you?
Standing outside of the vehicle.
And was anything specific going on that brought up Tara Grinstead that you can recall?
No, I think it was just still pretty fresh, and most of the people there she probably taught, so we were still, just discussing.
Are you able at this point to distinguish between what Ryan said and what Bo said?
No.
The comments that were made, were they being made by just one person or by both of them?
The statement was made by one.
Okay. Do you recall who made that statement?
I do not.
The other person who was sitting there, do you recall if they had any response to that statement being made?
It was an agreed upon statement. The other one just kind of chuckled in agreement.
So to be clear, the statement gets made, the other person doesn't say, what are you talking about, or anything of that nature?
No.
What was the statement that was made?
The statement that I recall was, we killed and burned her body, basically.
Okay. At the time that they said that they killed and burned her body, did you have any idea where they meant this had occurred? Where the murder occurred and where the body burning occurred?
No.
Did you make an assumption about where you thought the body might have been burned?
I didn't make an assumption. I wasn't real sure.
Okay.
I just knew where I was at when the statement was made.
Do you know of anybody else that would have been an earshot of that statement being made when it was made?
I do not. I can't even recall who was all at that social gathering at that time.
Any doubt in your mind, however, that you heard these two people laughing about killing and burning Tara Grinstead's body?
No.
After you heard this statement just a few weeks after she had been murdered, did you tell anyone about what you had heard?
I went back and I told my roommate what I'd heard.
What was your roommate's name?
Luke Roberts.
No, Luke Roberts, where does he work now?
He worked for the Ocilla Star. He's the editor.
At the time, was Luke Roberts working for the Ocilla Star?
He was not.
Did you tell him this in his capacity as a reporter?
I told him as a friend, because we were basically like best friends.
And did Luke Roberts encourage you to go to the authorities?
Yes, we discussed it, and he felt that I needed to, tell somebody.
Okay. So to be clear, has Luke Roberts ever told you to keep this quiet or not tell
Luke
anyone?
Roberts he's never told me to keep this quiet.
Who did you tell after you told Luke Roberts?
So I told Andy and Janice Polk. I was currently working for them at the time as a photographer. And we basically went around and took photographs at Little League World Series, action photos of players.
Janice and Andy Polk, did they live in Ocilla at the time as well?
Yes.
Why would you have gone to them to tell them about this comment?
Well, I went to work the next day to filter through some photos, I believe, and I told them I trusted them.
Why didn't you just go to law enforcement?
Well, I didn't have the best reputation in Ocilla, so I didn't go to law enforcement.
Janice and Andy Polk, do you know if they had any affiliation with any searches or any websites that were being run to try and find Tara?
I believe they were assisting in development of websites to, get the word out about Tara and parties that were helping.
When you told Janice and Andy what you'd been told at this party, did they encourage you to go to law enforcement?
They took a I don't recall them encouraging me to go to law enforcement. They took a statement, if I best remember. Janice either handwritten or typed out a statement, and then in which they turned over to law enforcement.
Okay. Did you ever speak directly with law enforcement after Janice and Andy had you either type or write out the statement?
I was never interviewed by law enforcement.
You were never interviewed by law enforcement?
No.
Did you ever go out to that location in the pecan orchard where the bonfire had been when you were told this?
Yes.
And with whom did you go?
So I went out there with, to the best of my knowledge, it was Janice and Andy and Nelson went out there. And I can't recall anybody else, but, so I really don't know.
When you say Nelson, who do you mean?
Polk.
Okay.
He was a sheriff. He was a sheriff deputy.
Okay. So someone from the
law enforcement.
Law enforcement went with you?
Yes.
Now, when y'all went out there, did you have any reason to believe she had actually been burned in the orchard?
I didn't have any reason to believe it, no.
Okay.
I wasn't sure. I could have just, I wasn't sure.
When y'all go out to the orchard, you and Janice Polk and Andy Polk and Nelson Polk, tell us kind of how that happens.
So we just go out there and we just kind of just looked around the area where the fire was in the location where we was at that party.
Okay, to be clear, when you say the fire...
There was a bonfire there that night.
Okay. So you don't mean the fire where she was burned, you mean where your bonfire was?
Where the bonfire was that we were gathering, yes. And from best of my knowledge, it was in a completely different location.
Now that information that you've just told us, is that something you've learned
That's
since?
something I've learned since the arrest of Ryan Duke.
Okay. But at the time, back in 2005, you didn't have any of that knowledge?
No.
After you've written or typed or signed a statement, I understand it's been a long time ago, but after the statement is done, and you go out to the orchard with someone from law enforcement, when was the next time you were contacted by law enforcement about this case?
I was contacted by Jason Chanel the day they arrested Ryan Duke.
Okay. From 2005 until 2017, did you ever speak with another officer or anybody else from law enforcement about what you heard Bo and Ryan say that night?
Never.
Did anyone ever approach you in that time period?
Never.
Why didn't you come forward and try and tell somebody again after that day?
I just assumed that I took the best steps at the time, and it was just a statement possibly made by some drunk young people, and it just wasn't really anything. Turned out to be nothing.
And I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, and tell me if this is not right, but it sounds like you're saying you assumed it was handled by law
I
enforcement?
assumed it was handled by law enforcement, yes.
Okay.
And if
When
it-
Jason Shadell came and spoke with you the day Ryan Duke was arrested, did you cooperate with him?
Yes,
Did you give him a statement?
yes.
Since that
I
time,
never physically met with him, though. It was all telephone conversation.
thank you for clarifying that, I apologize, but you did speak with him and gave him an interview.
Yes,
Have you cooperated with both law enforcement and the district attorney's office in any way you've been asked to cooperate?
best of my knowledge.
The location of where that pecan orchard was that you were having the bonfire, are you fairly familiar with that area of Bowens Mill Highway?
Yes,
Showing opposing counsel has been previously tendered and admitted to evidence in page 26 and 27. Can I approach the witness?
You may.
Mr. Lott, I'm going to show you what's been previously tendered as states 26 and 27 and ask you to take a look at both of those for me and tell me if you're able to identify on either of those the general area of where that bonfire occurred. And tell me which one's best for you.
I believe this one's going to be the best.
So that's going to be states 26. Judge, may I have the witness step down for me?
You can.
I'll get you to step on down here in front of the jury,
We're going to
please.
make sure that the court reporter can pick up what you're saying.
So I know I'll talk loud enough. If you'll be sure and talk loud enough, we won't get in trouble, okay?
All right.
So I'm going to show you stage 26. Is that oriented correctly, or how do you want me to orient it?
Let's see. Probably about that.
Okay. So this road that we see running in the middle of stage 26, do you know the name of that road?
That is Bowens Mill Highway.
Okay. And can you show us on Bowens Mill, on this stage 26, where the pecan orchard is?
The pecan orchard is going to be all this area here.
Okay. Where was the bonfire, the general location of the bonfire y'all had that night?
Here.
So way down here on the south end?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have. You can have a seat, please, sir. After this comment was made in 2005, did you continue to be friends with Bo and Ryan?
I did hang out with them probably a couple more times. Maybe a handful, but not very much. I'd kind of started taking a different direction in my life, I guess you would say.
When you say a different direction, can you tell us what you mean by that?
I'd got a job over in Douglas, and I'd started school at South Georgia College, so all my friends in Irwin County, I was spending more time in Douglas in that area, so.
As you're sitting here tonight, are you able to tell this jury, today, are you able to tell this jury specifically who all was at the bonfire where Ryan and Bo made that statement?
I'm not.
Do you know or have any knowledge of being present at the home of Bo and Ryan the night that Tara Grinstead was murdered?
I was not.
Other than what you heard Bo and Ryan say and quite frankly joke about that day, do you have any other personal knowledge about how Tara Grinstead was murdered?
I do not.
And the person that we've been discussing, Bo Dukes, who was one of the two people joking around about that, is he in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And could you please identify him for the jury?
He's here.
Just let the record reflect, please, Judge, he's identified the defendant. I don't have any further questions, Mr. Lott.
All right. Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Lott.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you. I've got some questions. If I ask you anything that you do not hear, you do not understand, let me know.
Okay.
Efforts not to try to trick you, but more to it's important you understand what's being asked before you answer. When did you first meet Bo Dukes?
First time I met Bo Dukes was, I believe, around my freshman year in high school, maybe?
Okay, all right, so he would have been a sophomore at that time?
Correct.
And I believe you said you graduated 2003,
Correct.
and by about 2005, 2006, you were in Douglas, focusing on your job, focusing on school.
Yeah, around that time.
But y'all,
2006, probably more.
2006?
Yeah.
Okay. But during that time, though you may not have been best friends, you were close friends.
We were acquaintances.
Spent time together socially?
Yes.
Saw each other at parties?
Yes.
Drank together occasionally?
Yes.
And you had said the statement that was made, the three of you were in a car that day.
I wasn't in the vehicle.
You were outside of the vehicle?
Yes.
So you truly then overheard the statement that was not made to you. Well, in fairness, let me ask you.
I don't know if it was made towards me or if I did overhear the statement.
Okay, all right. It isn't a situation where they said, hey, Garland,
No.
this is what happened.
No. It wasn't
And-
a confession towards me.
Thank you. And your testimony was that someone, didn't know who, had made the comment that she'd been killed and burned. Someone chuckled about it. Was that the end of it? The end of what you heard?
Yes.
Okay. Not something where people were laughing about this going on, joking about it. It was commented by someone unknown, chuckled by someone unknown. That was it.
Yes.
But it's pointed out that...
But I do believe and agree and know that it was an agreed upon statement by him, both Ryan and Bo.
And you say that in the sense that when the person said we burned to kill, the other person said nothing to negate that fact.
Correct.
Suggested it. Okay. Thank you. As district attorney had stated to you, you said at that point in time, everybody in Osceola is looking for this Grinstead, correct?
Correct.
And when you heard this statement, it bothered you, correct?
Correct.
It bothered you and you took it seriously, correct?
Correct.
And you went to people you trusted because you believed that based on prior actions or whatever perception may be, you may not have had the best reputation with law enforcement.
Correct.
But you still went to someone you trusted and you did so, I believe you said, the next day.
Yeah, I believe it was the next day.
All right. And the statement that was prepared, did you write that yourself or did Janice Polk write it?
Janice Polk.
When she wrote that statement, were they your words being written down by her or were they her words?
Best of my knowledge, they were my words.
All right. And I know we're going way back, 14 plus years, okay, but to the best of your recollection, do you remember signing off on that in any way, initialing it or something?
Best of my recollection, I did.
You
But
did?
but I can't 100% be sure.
I understand, again, we're talking about 14 years.
Yeah.
That statement is then provided to law enforcement.
Correct. Best of my knowledge.
And was that the Irwin County Sheriff's Office?
Correct.
And you believe that because eventually you end up with not only Andy Janice, but Nelson Polk, who you said is with the deputy with the Sheriff's Office, and y'all walk around the field and look where there's been a bonfire.
Correct.
Now, I know you said you had never been sat down and interviewed. Is that right?
Correct.
Much like what happened when you talked with Agent Shadell. He called you and asked you very, very specific questions, and you walked through everything that happened. But when you were out in that field that day, did you talk with Nelson Polk, deputy, about the statement you had overheard?
I don't recall discussing it.
It could have happened, it may not have happened, you just don't recall one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't recall discussing it with him.
He seemed to be taking the matter seriously.
To the best of my judgment at the time, I guess, yes, maybe. Possibly, to the best of my knowledge.
Law enforcement's looking for Mr. Grinstead.
Yeah,
Was a letter given to Nelson?
I didn't give it to him myself, so,
Are Andy and Janice related to Nelson?
not that I'm aware of.
Just coincidental both last name.
Yeah, but I don't believe or never recall them making a statement that they were related to him.
But in summary, the day after you heard this statement that so disturbed you, you prepared a statement with the assistance of Janice Paul, the contents of which stated you had heard and had information that both Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes may have something to do with the death or disappearance of Miss Tara Grinstead.
Yes,
And that was given to law enforcement.
best of my knowledge.
There was a search, and you believe the statement seriously, but you never heard anything after.
Correct.
Do you remember when Bo enlisted and went to the Army?
Not really.
Okay. Were you back in town? I know you were at Douglas working in 2006 in school. Did you happen to spend Christmas back in this area with family?
I'm sure I went to a relative's house, but, I don't recall getting up with any buddies or old friends or anything like that.
Okay. You don't remember ever being at any parties or any places where Mr. Dukes would have been, with anybody who may have been in the Army would have been?
No.
You said earlier that you had drank alcohol before Mr. Dukes. Have you ever personally observed him to get so intoxicated that he would not remember what may have happened in Carter Hole the night before?
I can't recall any instance of him being in that manner.
Okay.
So, but I'm pretty sure all of us at that age group at one time or another drank enough where we didn't remember.
All right. Does that have happened to you?
Yes.
Thanks, sir.
There's a couple things. Defense counsel referenced the fact that there were two unknown persons making statements. I think you clarified, but I want to be sure. Who were the two people who were making this agreement or this discussion about murdering and burning Tara Grinstead's body?
It was both Bo and Ryan Dukes.
Did either one of them seem to be taking more responsibility than the other?
Not that I can recall.
Either of them seem in any way disturbed by what would happen?
Not at the time.
Now, defense counsel asked you about if you'd ever been so intoxicated you didn't remember what happened the night before. To your recollection, have you ever been so intoxicated you claim to have murdered someone?
I've never been that intoxicated before.
To your recollection, do you ever remember being so intoxicated that you claim to have burned someone's body?
Never.
Did you find the statement funny?
I didn't find it funny.
Let me ask you, there have been, let me go back. Well, you've talked about a little bit, the nature of the relationship between Bo and Ryan on that night when they were joking around about this. Either of them seemed scared of the other person.
Never.
Either of them seemed to be covering up for the other person.
No.
Either of them seemed to think that this was an inappropriate comment to make.
Not at the time.
What, in fact, was their reaction?
Like I said, one said it and the other chuckled in agreement.
No further questions.
Mr. Falk.
No reproach, Your Honor.
All right, you can step down.
Thank you.
You can leave that there. You're free to go, sir. State will call Gary Rockland to the stand.